Hello again. So we're going to jump in with episode 12. I'm just recording these Bing Bang Boom, episodes 11, 12, and 13, but spreading them out into separate videos to hopefully make it easier for people to follow along as they binge the CW Nancy Drew show on their own without having to, worry about spoilers. So episode 12, I think this combined with episode 13 is my absolute favorite out of this entire season so far. So good. But before I get into the plot, can we just have a minute? Did anybody else notice that Nancy's sweater in this was maybe similar to that of the doll from the Chucky movies? Maybe that's just me. I was too scared of the commercials for that movie to watch it as a kid, and I still haven't gone back. So I could be wrong, but it seemed reminiscent. Anyway, diving into the actual episode itself. So when Bess asked Ace, this is just like random corner to start us off here. When Bess asked Ace to be nice to her because he was her, what? She said a word. I don't know if it was her accent that I couldn't understand it. I thought I heard the word patanker. I looked it up. I don't know what that means. The internet did not know what it means. So I feel like I had to have misheard it. I'm going to go back, see if maybe subtitles can help me out. But if anybody knows, comment below. Let me know what Bess actually said or what a patanker is. Because, I don't know, I teach English and I don't know what that word means. Hook me up. All right. Also, one of my favorite things that I've noticed about this show is that they do not over-explain the jokes. If you get the joke, you get the joke. If not, you're not missing out on the plot of the episode, but they don't belittle the audience. That is absolutely one of my pet peeves, is when TV shows feel the need to explain their jokes. I've stopped listening to amazing comedians because they started doing that. I'm looking at you, Bo Burnham and Demetri Martin. And then the one that really hit home for me on that one was when Bess, George, Nancy, and Nick, they decided to take the sewer instead of going into Larkspur Lane through the air vents up top. And George just kind of made a passing joke about Les Miserables. And it was perfect because Nick is obviously very well read. He's also like the ex-con moving through the sewers. So anybody who knows Les Miserables, that's an obvious Jean Valjean reference. But they didn't dwell on it. They just let it happen. They chuckled and then moved along. Perfect. Loved it. Then after that, I noticed that George obviously is always the one who's kind of calling people out here. She had an awesome call out where she said to Nancy, like, I don't know how you had a solo career, because they've obviously developed the show into more of an ensemble cast. And so pointing out that with the way the show is structured, you couldn't just have Nancy Drew on her own the way you do in many of the books, where Bess and George just tag along and they're off doing their own thing while Nancy finds the mystery and deals with it, and they're just support. But in this, they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting alongside her. So I liked that. I think it's good to call out, and like I really needed at the beginning of the show, something to separate the books from what they're doing here. George has been an amazing way to do that so far, and this was just another example of her doing that. Also, I think they're trying to do a monster of the week a la Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the way I had kind of suggested in the earlier videos, but I'm realizing that it might actually be more of a lead of the week. So as they're uncovering different parts of this mystery, trying to solve it, they're picking up on bits and pieces and then thoroughly investigating that within a given episode. I have to assume that's what they're doing. Otherwise, uncovering Lucy's guidance counselor records in the last episode, where we miraculously find out that Nancy's mom was her guidance counselor, and then in this episode where all of a sudden we have a lead on Lucy's mom, seems kind of out of right field if they're not taking it with the lead of the week approach. So I'm going to kind of assume that that's what they're doing moving forward. And hopefully with the second season, they keep to that rhythm, because I do think it's working, even though it does seem like, oh yeah, now we know about her mom. But it's good building. I think it does work. Also, now that I have embraced the supernatural aspect of it, I am so in for a haunted hospital and stuck in a dreamscape plotline. Like, this is gold. I was absolutely riveted by this episode. One of my favorites so far, especially when you combine this with what happens next in episode 13. Mwah, absolute perfection between these two. I do keep getting the darkness that they unlocked with their seance mixed up with the clues that Lucy's kind of leading them to, though. Especially, I noticed this in the hospital. There was that mold that was growing all over the hospital, and they made it kind of obvious that it was growing quickly. So I thought that that was Lucy kind of guiding them through the hospital to her mom to uncover her secret. And so when Ned noticed it, Nick, I thought that that was Lucy kind of switching focus from Nancy to Ned to guide him there. But then as it took over, I had to kind of come to the realization that it was just a general darkness that didn't necessarily connect to Lucy. Or, while it did connect to Lucy, that wasn't its sole purpose. So I'm figuring that out, but it does take me a little bit. I don't know if that's purposeful from the show writer or the showrunner's perspective, or if I'm just slow on the uptake. So we'll see. Then the other thing, can we have a moment for how amazing Ace's part in this B-plot was? So when he got the phone call from Carson Drew that there was a hit out against Carson and he needed to get in touch with Nancy, and then Ace couldn't get in touch with Nancy and just freaked out and jumped into action, I was giddy by how he responded. Just that actor's facial reactions, his emotions, his thought process on this. I felt like I could see it all. So good. And then he went and talked to Ryan Hudson right away, interrupted Bess's fancy lunch, hacked the system, stole a police van, busted Carson out of prison, and then, just hold him hostage. When he was trying to do the hostage tough guy on the phone, but he clearly hadn't seen more than one or two videos where somebody was actually in a hostage situation. Oh my goodness. He is adorable. I was so excited through that whole thing. Guiltily, I was a little gleeful, might be the word, at how screwed Carson was in this whole situation. I don't wish ill on real people, but maybe it's okay to do it for fictional characters. But I guess it does make sense that he's a lawyer, he's in a small town, he hobnobs with the elite. So yeah, of course he just got house arrest. He didn't get stabbed, I guess. There's that. Anyway, so also I feel like I need to admit, I'm no strategist. I don't follow it well. I can put it together after the fact. But as we go along, I am not good at predicting she's trying to double cross him, or I don't get it. So the whole situation where Bess's plotline, she went to her mentor and was supposed to watch her close this amazing deal. And then they go talk to Ryan, who pulls some strings for Carson or tries to call off the hit, and then Bess's mentor steps in, and I think she gets Ace off for most of the criminal offenses he committed getting Carson out. Is there more to it than that? Because if there was, I didn't pick up on it. It seemed maybe purposefully convoluted for the sake of heightening the anticipation or the excitement with this episode. So I feel like I definitely missed something there, but that could just be me. Maybe I got it all and it's just not that important. But along those lines, as we were watching Bess's story, I did really like the relationship that she had with her mentor. It started out a little slow. Okay, yes, we get it. You're very different people, but you have things to teach each other. But Bess had some of the best one-liners in this episode. I feel like usually George gets those. Like in the last episode, George got to say, I guess I'll shuck myself. But in this one, Bess had the don't bitch-splain the stock market to me. And face on mute, please. Those were fantastic. I kind of wish I could, I don't know, go back to being 16 and use those appropriately. But as a woman in her 30s, I don't feel like I get to quite use those as much. but then that's, I think, kind of it with this episode. So I was just very engaged through the whole thing, and I don't feel like I can wrap this up because it tied so closely into episode 13 with getting Nancy out of the dreamscape there. So I'm going to call it quits on this one, and stay well, stay inside. Until next time, toodaloo, Nancy Drew.